Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Richmond Valley Council's Ordinary Council meeting for September 2022. I'll open the meeting with acknowledgement of country. Richmond Valley Council recognises the people of the Bundjalung Nations as custodians and traditional owners of this land, and we value and appreciate the continuing culture connections to lands, their living culture, and their unique role in the life of this region in the past, present and future. Councillors, I'd like to ask that if someone could move a motion to change the business on the agenda of the prayer moving to item 5.1, please.
Moved, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey, seconder. Councillor Hayes.
Oh,
sorry, McGillan then. Oh, sorry. It's all right. Councillors, the reason that I want to include the prayer into the tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth II, if that's okay. Any discussion? Then all those in favour? Our next item, item 3, public address. Our first speaker tonight is Rebecca Woods, Bogle Land Aboriginal Land Council. Item 17.1, Bridge Road Compulsory Acquisition. Would you like to come forward, please, Rebecca? Welcome, Rebecca. You have a 5-minute time limit. At 4 minutes, there'll be a bell ring to give you a notice of 1 minute. But feel comfortable, and if you run over a little bit, that's fine.
all right. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak before you this evening. Before I start, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Rebecca Woods. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Bogle Local Aboriginal Land Council in Coraki, located in the Box Ridge Community Centre. I'm joined today by some of my colleagues in the gallery. I'd like to mention Uncle William Drew, who is a Bundjalung elder and the chairperson of the Bogle Local Aboriginal Council. And I have other representatives with me today, ILHA staff and members from the Department of Primary Industry and Environment. I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the country we meet on today, the Western Bundjalung people. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and I'd like to acknowledge their continuing connection to the country on which we meet today. Bogle Council was fortunate enough to be named as one of the discrete communities that would benefit from a Roads to Home program. The purpose of the Roads to Home program is essentially to improve the infrastructure within the Aboriginal discrete community known as Box Ridge Mission, to address years of inequality basically. Bogle Land Council owns Box Ridge Mission in freehold title, but when we got freehold title, we didn't have any thing given to us in order to maintain it. So we've basically been maintaining it since people have been living on Box Ridge Mission. Essentially, what we're asking for, we've made it no secret when we put in our first development application in December 2021, we do intend to subdivide where the mission is currently. It's known as one large lot, and we'd like to subdivide it individually with a view to, potentially offering our Aboriginal community members individual home ownership. Really, this DA things. Firstly, it's about fairness. We're not asking for anything that other communities in the Richmond Valley Council aren't already beneficiaries of. Bogle Land Council is a ratepayer, just like other community members in the Richmond Valley Council footprint. We'd like the same services standards. We've basically got a garbage service that comes out to Box Ridge, but we don't have our own post boxes, and everybody uses the local post office to have their mail delivered and collected. So we're asking for that equality of services within the Richmond Valley Council footprint. We'd like to be able to come out at the street at night where our kids are playing in the yard and know that the light's going to come on just like every other street, that's in Corrikai. Richmond Valley Council. I'll just mention, this is a plan of the subdivision that we hope the council will support. DPI have invested a lot of money, as have Bogle Land Council, in its knowledge and understanding of its community about the community's aspirations for the now and into the future for our future generations. As I mentioned before, one of the reasons we'd like to subdivide is to bring the community infrastructure up to par with other residential areas that are in the footprint of the Richmond Valley Council. We'd like individual lots, so if we should go down the path of home ownership, we're able to do that. We'd like to be able to identify houses individually, so if police get called, they can go to the right house. If ambulance are needed, they can go to the right house. And heaven forbid we should ever need a fire engine to go out there and put out a fire, but we'd like them to be able to go to the right house, and that's just simply not possible at the moment. It sort of relies on someone standing at the entry road and pointing them in the right direction. We've got a few barriers. Obviously the most significant is the fact that the access road we don't have legal access. It's actually owned by Crown Lands, and it is subject to native title by the Banjlang Aboriginal Corporation, who are the native title holders for that area. Basically been told that we've got three options. We can build a new entry road into Box Ridge, cutting through lot 175, which we also own, which is an efficient use of that, because we hope to subdivide that in the future to increase housing options for our members. We could enter into an Aboriginal land use agreement with the native title holders, but that's a very legal, complex and long process. Or we could compulsively acquire Box Ridge Road as a public road. Bogle's preference is 3, obviously for its speed, and it allows us to start the actual work. And we need the councillors' support tonight in order to do that. We've got a letter provided today by Uncle Warren Williams, who is the chairperson of the Banjlang Native Title Group, who have given us in principle support for this. And we hope that the councillors of the Richmond Valley Council will support us in our endeavours to subdivide the lot and approve our development application. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you take any questions from councillors? Has any councillor got any questions? Councillor McGillan.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, thank you. The rates up to date.
Councillor, could you just face the microphone for the recording? That's all.
Oh, sorry, folks. Apologies. So, all the rates up to date out in the mission?
Yes. So what I would say is that we're the largest rate payers in our area. Our rates are all up to date, and so are our water and sewage rates as well. I think the thing to remember for the councillors is that this is a cost-neutral exercise for the Richmond Valley Council. All the expenses will be borne by the developer, as in Bogle Local Aboriginal Land Council. So I really want to stress that to the councillors, that we're not asking you for anything. We are doing it ourselves. We simply need your consent to approve the DA to do the works.
Thank you. Any other questions? Rebecca, this will be debated in 17.1 later in the agenda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for attending tonight. Our next speaker is Ms Jill Lyons on item 20.1, response to questions, Councillor Patrick Deegan, Regional Jobs Precinct and expression of interest for regional waste solutions. Would you like to come forward, please, Jill? When you're ready, you know the rules. You've been here before, so welcome.
Thank you. Good evening to all in attendance. Personally, I've been contacted by numerous concerned people in our community regarding the waste to energy proposal, and despite our mayor telling people it's not an issue, people are not convinced. We all know this is a state significant project, which does mean the final decision is out of council's hands to determine. But surely council owes it to its community to at least listen to the experts from the National Toxic Network, who have the knowledge and the evidence to show that what the state and industry are saying is at odds to their findings. We also know that Casino is one of 4 towns determined by the state government to be the right location to build one of these facilities. The other 3 towns of Lithgow, Western Sydney, Parkes, Western New South Wales, and Tarago in the south, approximately 40 kilometres from Goulburn. Surely council values our valley and the wider region of the Northern Rivers, its clean green image that is recognised not only in the state but across the world in agriculture and environment especially. Tourists flock to our beautiful clean beaches and are amazed at the magnificent natural environments where they now can see koalas in the wild, along with many other amazing creatures calling this region home. Then there are the impacts to our region's export markets, as well as recognised impacts on the health of our most vulnerable, our children, our grandchildren. To ensure that council is armed with both sides of this industry, it seems out of character with so much to lose, but actually refuse to listen and learn from people who have studied this industry, have the facts, the figures to back what they would present to council, and are more than happy to answer any questions from any of the councillors and council staff that would have. Surely there's no listening to representatives from the National Toxic Network while we still have a chance to make some changes. Australia is a signatory to the Stockholm Convention, and as such, under Article 10, councils must discuss and consult with its community where there is possibilities of persistent organic pollutants, which in waste-to-energy facility operations there are. Fly ash especially poses huge risks. I believe council has a duty of care to its community to listen and learn of the possible negatives that this industry will generate, not only in the present time, but for many years to come, even after this facility has finally closed down. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Would you like to take questions?
If anyone has a question, yep.
Any questions? No? Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you. Oh, you can have it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ms Liz Stops on item 20.1, response to questions, Councillor Patrick Deegan, Regional Jobs Precinct and expressions of interest for regional waste solutions. Welcome, Liz, and you know the rules. You've been here many times, so welcome.
Thank you.
And when you're ready, please start.
I acknowledge that there is as yet no development application to build an incinerator in the Richmond Valley. However, the recently legislated and somewhat misnamed Protection of the Environment Operations General Amendment Thermal Energy from Waste Regulation 2022 permits incinerators in 4 regional locations in New South Wales, including the Richmond Valley Regional Jobs Precinct, which indicates that an incinerator proposal is perhaps imminent. In the General Manager's response to Councillor Deegan's questions, he quotes from a review titled The Health Impacts of Waste Incineration, a Systematic Review by Tate et al., published 2020. This paper was informed by studies into particular aspects of such as serious diseases, a range of negative reproductive outcomes such as neoplasia. All populations were assessed according to proximity to an incinerator. The GP in his answer, quoted a particular sentence from that review that reads, "I note a more recent systematic review of health impacts that concludes that incinerator technology and infrequent maintenance are linked with adverse health effects, with fewer effects associated with more modern plants." I would like to share with you some other excerpts from that review. Quote, "Newer waste incinerator technologies are claimed to run more cleanly and with less environmental impact. Nevertheless, pollutants are still produced. Since many health effects require cumulative exposure and may take many years to manifest, it will be difficult to measure any improved safety from modern incinerator designs for decades. So it is premature to conclude that these newer technologies improve safety." The review also states, "Compared to other energy sources, the financial cost of waste to energy are high. Further building reliance on maintaining a waste stream for supply of material counteracts the imperative to reduce waste." Unquote. This is a really important point, as Council has developed measures to separate and treat organics and has been proactive in facilitating recycling. Working towards zero waste, of which there are many examples worldwide, would complement and build on current Council strategies. It would also be more cost-effective and generate more long-term jobs. A waste incinerator would threaten existing measures and stifle further innovation. Studies have proven that areas that do have an incinerator recycle less than those that don't. Denmark is one example. The review also reminds us of the Stockholm Convention ratified by Australia, which, quote, "provides international guidance on the safe management of persistent organic pollutants, POPs. The guidelines cover waste incineration because this is a potential source of POPs, including dioxin-like compounds. The objective of the convention is to minimise or prevent human exposure to POPs. It incorporates a precautionary and manufacturer/user pays approach. Currently, manufacturers bear no responsibility for the potentially toxic and unrecyclable products they produce. The load of financial and practical responsibility of disposal falls on local councils, and this has to change. If producers were held responsible and made accountable for the whole life cycle of their products, they would be encouraged to reform practices that are harmful to health and the environment." Another point regarding the Stockholm Convention, Article 10, it's a legal requirement that management decisions regarding anything that produces POPs are conducted with community consultation. To date, there's been no community consultation about the possibility of an incinerator in the Richmond Valley, which, if it were built at the Jobs Precinct, would be close to populated areas, schools, the hospital, the meatworks, etc. Another quote from the review, "Local community groups have a basis for legitimate concern, and so siting of incineration facilities needs to take these concerns into account. Early transparent consultation with communities about these facilities is essential." Unquote. An excerpt from the conclusion of the take at our review states, "Further research is needed to compare different incinerator designs and incineration with other methods of waste management. This will allow more rigorous and meaningful comparisons between waste disposal options. Since there has been insufficient time for health effects of newer technology to emerge, a precautionary approach to licensing and monitoring incinerators must continue. New incinerators should be located away from areas of food production, and food grown near an incinerator should be avoided." Unquote. This is a productive beef and food producing area. It's a biodiversity hotspot. Why would we risk threatening the reputation of our products, the health of the Northern Rivers population, and the environment we share with treasured wildlife? Thank you.
Thank you. You take questions if there's any?
Sure.
Got any questions? No, thank you very much. Oh, did you want to ask some questions?
I've got sent in, yes. Is that okay to do it now?
Yeah, when you're ready.
Did the Richmond Valley Council make representations to the New South Wales Government, or did the New South Wales Government approach Richmond Valley Council to be included in the Protection of the Environment Operations General Amendment Thermal Energy from Waste Regulation 2022?
If you'd like to just ask them all and I'll just answer them all together.
Sure.
Thanks.
What was the process for this inclusion, and why wasn't there any community consultation? And as Richmond Valley Jobs Precinct has been designated as a potential site for a waste incinerator by the New South Wales Government, at what stage in the process does Council intend to consult with the community?
Mr General Manager.
Thanks for the questions, Ms Stock. The inclusion of thermal energy from waste regulation was a New South Wales Government decision and a natural progression from the Government's decision to include the Richmond Valley in the Energy from Waste Infrastructure Plan. The Energy from Waste policy statement, which sets the most stringent emissions standards in the world, and the draft regulation were all subject to community consultation in 2021 and 2022. The Energy from Waste Infrastructure Plan, Energy from Waste policy statement outlines a number of selection criteria for locating energy from waste facilities, some of which include proximity to road and rail connections, capacity to support regional communities who need more jobs, economic investment and access to energy, and capacity to complement existing waste management strategies where the community are already committed to resource recovery by providing separate waste collection for dry recyclables and food and organic wastes. So Casino meets the criteria, which is why the New South Wales Government also selected the town as a of the regional jobs precinct. The announced in February 2021 and has always been clearly communicated that the precinct will create jobs in agriculture, manufacturing and renewable energy sectors. The precinct master plan is by the New South Wales Government in conjunction with Council and will be placed on exhibition. This work is completed and that will obviously be for community consultation. Also note that the New South Wales Waste and Sustainable Materials Strategy 2041, which was also subject to widespread community consultation, identifies that the Northern Rivers region will require an additional landfill capacity to accept up to 100,000 tonnes of waste per annum or an equivalent medium-scale energy recovery facility by 2030. It also, that government strategy includes energy from waste as part of its circular economy. So Richmond Valley Council, together with other councils on the North Coast, have been exploring alternative waste treatment solutions for many years, and part of that has been the development of the North Coast Regional Waste Investment Report. So then, as part of that, councils and on behalf of our communities are searching for better economic and environmental solutions to our current practice of landfilling a lot of residual waste. And finally, if there is a proposal, again, there will be a requirement for further consultation with the community before any proposed development would be determined. Questions?
Thank you for your answers.
Thank you. Thanks to those speakers for attendance, and item 20.1 will be, those questions for Councillor Deegan will be answered later in the agenda. Councillors, that brings us to item 4, apologies. We have one apology from Councillor Cornish. Could I get a mover, please?
Move just me.
Councillor Morrissey, seconder.
Second.
Councillor Humphries. Could I put that motion, please? All those in favour? Thank you. Takes us to item 5.1. Community condolences, Queen Elizabeth II. I'll move that recommendation. Could I get a second, please? Councillor Morrissey. Councillors, I'm going to read the supplementary report for those who are online and watching. The Richmond Valley community has been deeply saddened by the death of Queen Elizabeth II on the 8th of September 2022, and many residents were among the 4 billion worldwide who watched the solemn ceremony of her funeral. It was a fitting tribute for a life of devoted service to and leadership. The Queen holds a special place in the memory of many Richmond Valley residents, following her visit in February 1954 with her husband Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. Some 15,000 people braved the rain to welcome the Queen and Prince Philip to Casino, many having camped in the streets overnight. The Queen was greeted by loud cheering and applause as she alighted from the royal car in Walker Street, where she was greeted by New South Wales Premier John Cahill and Casino Mayor Alderman Richmond Mallywithers. As part of the official proceedings of the day, the royal couple planted 2 young bunya pines on the riverbank at Carrington Park. These saplings have now grown to magnificent trees and are testament to the strength and endurance of our community over the years. The park was later officially named Queen Elizabeth Park in order of the visit, and the Coracai section of the Casino Woodburn Road was changed to Queen Elizabeth Drive to recognise the Royals' journey to the Evans Head RAAF base for their flight. A special remembrance ceremony will be held on the riverbank at Casino near the Bunya Pines on Thursday the 22nd of September in honour of the Queen. It will include the laying of floral tributes, a minute's silence and a flag-raising ceremony using the original flagpole which was recently been restored by members of the Casino Men's Shed. Richmond Valley residents can also express their sympathies on the passing of Queen Elizabeth II in condolences books available at Casino Customer Service Centre in Casino and Evans Head, and I believe these books will also be available for signing at the ceremony. The condolence books will be collected and sent by Federal Member for Page, Kevin Hogan, to Buckingham Palace, where they will be archived by the Commonwealth, forming part of the lasting record of Australia's close relationship with the Queen over many decades. For many of us, the death of Queen Elizabeth II marks the passing of an era. She will be remembered fondly for her wisdom, compassion and strength and the calm, well-measured leadership she brought to an increasingly complex world. On behalf of the Richmond Valley, I would like to express our community's sincere condolences to her family. I'd just like to add that in 1954, Casino was a very fortunate town to have a visit by Her Majesty. I know a lot of areas would have loved that to happen. And on the television the other day, there was a person who, at a school age, was driven by their school from Nambucca Heads to Casino to view the Queen's visit. And I know then that the road between Casino and Grafton would have been all gravel, so it would have been a bumpy old ride. And some of the photos you'll see later in the tribute of the amount of people at Queen Elizabeth Park in the pouring rain, it just shows you the respect that she had in the community. Is there any other speakers? No? Well, I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. And I'll now hand over to the General Manager for him to take us through the rest of the proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just given the occasion, we thought the prayer would be the Lord's Prayer, so feel free to join me in that. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. We now just have a visual tribute which will be on the screen, which Adam, one of our staff, has put together. So yeah, we'll watch that. So thanks for that, Adam. I'd now just like everyone to please stand while we observe a minute's silence for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. Thank you.
Just before we move on to the next item, that if you've all seen that size of that arch that was over the road, I believe that was constructed between Casino and Lismore at McKees Hill by the local community out there. So that must have been an awesome job to be able to do that. It takes us to 15.2. I'll move that New South Wales Independent Flood Inquiry. 5.2. Getting ahead of myself. New South Wales Independent Flood Inquiry. I'll move that. And seconder, Councillor Deegan. Councillors, it's pleasing to see that this report was finally released. It's been taken a while, but it's come out, and to note that 11 of Council's 12 recommendations have been adopted or included in the recommendations. It was a bit disappointing that the Pacific Motorway impacts down there that the community had concerns on weren't taken into consideration, but it's pleasing now to see that the media release recently by Transport New South Wales addressing this important issue for our mid-Richmond community. And I'll just read that recent release. Transport for New South Wales acknowledges the impacts to Northern Rivers communities following the rain and flood events in February and March 2022. Transport for New South Wales is committed to investigating the 2022 flood events to understand how the water flows interacted with the highway. Your valuable feedback will help inform this process. They are encouraging local communities near Woolgoolga to Ballina Pacific Highway upgrade to share their experiences of the 2022 flooding relative to where they live. And then it goes on to tell how you can access the feedback form or a phone number. So I'm pleased that that community now will be heard because it is a very important issue to those down there. Is there any other speakers or would like to make a comment on this report? Councillor Hayes?
Yeah, look, I'd like to just go through your report, and the report to me, and it's written as though we're disappointed with the outcome, and I think we are. Well, I am. I'm disappointed in what the government's done to date with the flood inquiry and the way they've passed it on to the Commission. I don't think they've done enough. I think that the recommendation should be changed to progress that, if you're willing to. And if you go through this report, there are many things in here, and I've highlighted a few. I'll start. The inquiry conducted 144 community meetings and received 1,494 submissions during the consultation period, which is great. It goes on and goes through what we've done, and that 11 of our 12 recommendations have been taken on board. What they've done with them, we're yet to find out. One of them was the outcome from the inquiry for possible buyback and house raising schemes was to pass their solution was to pass these on to the Reconstruction Commission, and there has been no clear decision or clarity supplied by the Commission to date. We've heard nothing. Nothing's happened as far as I know. Okay. With the inquiry, I put in a personal submission to the inquiry, and it was noted. We got note that they'd received them, and received an email the other day as a result of that to put a submission in about the impact on the Pacific Motorway, which hasn't been addressed at all. I can't understand why there would be a CSIRO report on the impact of the highway as well as one from Transport New South Wales. Why can't it just be an independent report? I think that needs to be further investigated. Here we encourage the Richmond Valley residents to participate in the community consultation soon to be undertaken. I think that's important, and I'd be interested to see how many actual get in and put submissions in. It's very important, and I don't know how we promote that. What else have I picked out? I have a question which the Mayor may or may not want to answer. I said, if we have a similar event any time within the next 12 months, noting the progress of the inquiry and the work of the Reconstruction Commission to date, what would be done differently?
I really can't answer that. Not that I don't want to.
No, that's right.
These are government agencies who really are making the final decisions. I can assure you that council is lobbying, as are other councillors in the area. But it just seems to me, and in my closing I'll make a bit of a statement in a minute, but it's just taking too long.
Too long, thank you. I feel, look, the only people that are getting on with their lives from this are the ones that are not waiting for governments or insurance companies to provide decisions and clarity. I'm of the opinion that the ones that are waiting are doing just that, they're waiting. I don't think there's going to be any answers. I think we're going to be left to move on by ourselves. I've seen nothing to date that gives me any confidence in the inquiry or of the work of the Reconstruction Commission to date. The money being thrown at this will be swallowed up by red tape and administration costs as far as I'm concerned. I'd like to suggest that we change the point 2 of the recommendation, if the mover and the second are willing. Notes the release of the New South Wales 2022 flood inquiry recommendations and progress the findings as a matter of urgency, that the New South Wales Government responds in good faith to its recommendations.
Could you say that again? I don't kind of see much in the...
It just changes it so that the urgency is in there, and it lets them know that we're not happy with where we're at this stage. Sorry, it replaces number 1, not number 2. I think I said number 2. Yeah, sorry, it replaces number 1. That's the, yeah. Okay, so number 1 notes the release of the New South Wales 2022 flood inquiry recommendations and progress the findings as a matter of urgency, that the New South Wales Government responds in good faith to its recommendations, and writes to the New South Wales Premier seeking urgent implementation. Responds in good faith to its recommendations.
Can you tidy that up a bit? It just seems a bit loose. Yeah, it's just a little bit loose at present. You've got to have a 2 in there.
Yeah,
Yep.
2's good.
As a matter of urgency.
Yeah, that's fine. I just think we need to be more firmer with what we're passing back to them.
Sorry?
I think we need to be more firmer with what we're passing back to them.
Are you,
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
look,
Yep.
as a mover, I'm happy to incorporate that because I'm just starting to get, something needs to happen and
Yeah.
you'll see when I close.
Yeah, okay.
Seconder, Councillor Deegan, you happy with that? Yep, okay. Any other councillors want to speak? So if I speak, I'll close now. Look, councillors, it's now almost 7 months since the floods devastated our community. There is no announcements on house raising, buybacks, land swaps, no firm commitments on funding for major infrastructure challenges. My concern is that Christmas will soon be upon us. These issues will come to a standstill. February next year will be 12 months since the first flood. Our community and council needs and deserves direction and certainty much sooner than later. And I hopefully that this motion will do it because I talk to a lot of people, and especially in the Lower River area, and a lot of them are really struggling down there. So I'll put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Page 9, 6.1, minutes of the ordinary meeting on August 2022. Can I get a mover of the accuracy of those minutes, please?
Move that.
Councillor Humphries,
Yeah, I'll second.
Councillor Hayes. All councillors okay with the accuracy? Put that motion in. Carried. Page 10, matters arising out of the minutes. Has any councillor got any matters arising? No? 8, declarations of interest. Any councillors got any declarations? Mr General Manager, you received any?
I haven't received any. However, I have one for myself, item 16.2, as a pecuniary interest other. If the matter is called, I'll leave the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Petitions nil, notice of motions nil, Mayor's reports on page 11. I'll move that.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey, is there any questions or comments? Put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Page 13, delegates' reports. I'll get a mover for that delegate report, please.
Move the report.
Councillor Humphreys, and I'll second. Questions?
Yeah, just a question around the two notices of motions. They're both around the
What part, if you're in the
oh,
attachment?
sorry, on page 23 in the attachments. There's one page there, it's got two notices of motions on it that were presented at your meeting. They're both based around flood mitigation works that are already constructed, and the maintenance program for them and the ongoing costs of them. When this flood commission gets its act together and gets some flood mitigation stuff happening, will Rouse Water bear the cost of the maintenance on any infrastructure they improve, they actually install, if they do?
Well, we would hope so, but
And will you be funded for that?
well,
Because it actually says in there that it says that that the last lot, anything that's in place now, has been passed back on to local councils.
well,
Are we going to bear the brunt of that as well?
well, originally, these flood mitigation was put in by the state government, and it was passed back to local councils, just handed over with cost shifting. Then the county was formed, and I'm not sure of the exact length of time and the amount of money, but say it was decades ago, and they were getting, I think, $60,000 or $80,000 a year. That has never increased for maintenance in that time. So, if I would expect there's going to be a real lot of new guidelines coming out of the flood inquiry and the CSIRO study, and if some of these works that need to be done, there is no way that councils or the county council could carry that maintenance out unless there's increased funding from the government. So something will have to carry through.
Those statements in there go on to say too that it's so hard to look after that infrastructure because of the public, everything that's attached to the land that they've got to go on to do it.
Well, it's
Crown land and
a lot of it's got to do also with some of the government legislation,
legislation.
which is very binding, and a farmer can't just go and clean out a drain. And even Rouse, who is the responsible agency for a lot of that flood mitigation down the lower river, we sometimes have to go through 6 or 7 agencies before we can actually cleaning the drain out. And it's just too much. So that will all be addressed, hopefully.
And one of the issues that come up at the resilience meetings was the farmers couldn't get access, or the rescuers couldn't get access up the flood drains because of the state of them to get to farms to rescue people during the flood. So, we don't want to see that happen again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Put that motion and all those in favour? Carried. Matters determined without debate. Has any councillors got any item they'd like to call? No? Well, I'll call 15.4 because it needs a resolution. 16.1 because it could be seen as a planning item, and 17.1 as we have had a presentation on that. Any other councillors?
I was going to call 15.4, but I didn't circle it because I didn't realise I was going to call it, but you've already covered it, so.
It's all right, you can have some input into that. Okay. So I need a motion for 15.1, 15.2, 15.3, 16.2, 17.2. Someone move that, please. Councillor Morrissey. Seconder.
Second.
Councillor Humphreys. All those in favour? Carried. Did you want to do 15.4?
I'd like to change the recommendation, okay, that council don't supply a councillor on this committee, but a report come back to council with a summary after each meeting of that committee.
Seconder?
Yeah,
Councillor Deegan. Sing out at me, throw something at me. Councillor Hayes, did you want to speak to that?
To get a councillor to sit on that and have an understanding of what goes on with the financials of council, we need to have a summary of what goes on in those meetings anyway, and a summary will always come back to council after those meetings. So I think it's something that we can work with and keep an eye on what's going on in that manner rather than have to attend the meetings.
I'll ask General Manager to make a comment about having a report come to council after every meeting.
Yeah, look, that would be the sort of normal sequence of events. Anyway, that's how previous arrangements were there. So a report from after each internal audit committee will come to council for your consideration and questions. So I don't have any issues with what's proposed.
Any other speakers? Councillor Deegan.
yeah, I'll just say that I think this is a good compromise. We had a discussion at the last meeting around councillors alternating or taking turns to attend, and I think this is a good way where and that was found to not be allowable, so I think this is a really good compromise that those reports come through and we have the opportunity to ask questions and so forth, so I think that's a really good solution.
And Mr. General Manager, that report would highlight if there was any concerns by the Audit Committee to council and...
Absolutely, that'll be that's their job in those areas where internal audit scrutinises. So you will get those reports, as some of you are familiar with, that identifies areas for, areas that we do well, areas that we need improvement. So you will get that detail and obviously a chance to comment on that.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Hayes, right to reply? Put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. 16.1. Page 25. Draft North Coast Regional Plan, Council's submission. I agree with fully agree with the report. Sorry, first of all, I need to get a motion. I'll move that, soon I'll call it.
Second.
I agree with the report. I just cannot understand why council's been made one of 4 regional job precincts and it's left out of the strategy at first level. It just doesn't seem to me as if the government departments are talking. So I agree with it and fully support it. Councillor Humphrey, do you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, I do. I actually would like to make a few comments. I actually feel that in true Aussie fashion, the submission goes into bat for our community. It goes in boots and all, and I'm really glad about that, as I believe it will disadvantage casino and our Richmond Valley quite significantly if this submission does not achieve the main goals. That is, casino being recognised as a strategic centre and included in the North Coast Urban Development Program. And being given the opportunity for, before the finalisation of the draft, for further discussion would also be an excellent outcome. I'd like to make the comment that I believe that the submission is actually a brilliant document. There is so much compelling information supporting our claims that I'm actually hopeful of the success through the submission process, and I'd like to make a couple of comments. I agree with the statement that the catastrophic 2022 floods and ongoing COVID pandemic have changed the face of the region, and that planning for the future also needs to change. It's difficult to comprehend how there is no recognition of Casino as a strategic centre while Council is knee-deep in the Regional Jobs Precinct program. Richmond Valley has been actively developing areas to attract new industry and investment to the region, complementing and supporting the industries that we currently have. And the Regional Jobs Precinct, it's not on our bucket list. Casino is a Regional Jobs Precinct. The submission identifies the benefits of strengthening the roles of the strategic centres, and of course, Casino, we'd like to be one, but it talks about strengthening centres like Casino and Ballina in preference to consolidating essential services in a regional city that is vulnerable to repeated natural disasters. It's quite remarkable to witness the role Casino played following the floods as listed in the submission. Retail in Casino opened trade within 24 to 72 hours following the flood, providing critical support for Lismore residents who were unable to access basic food supply and medical services. The NRLX continued to supply services to support animal welfare. Casino's direct road link to Grafton enabled early access to food supplies and freight. And then there's the question as to why Council hasn't been included in the soon-to-be-established North Coast Urban Development Program, a program to review housing supply needs and locations. In this area, Council has invested in a comprehensive urban growth management strategy to identify housing opportunities over the next 20 years. Well, it was Casino Council, Richmond Valley Council has been identified by New South Wales Regional Housing Fund as having a significant role to play in providing new housing supply. Council has already undertaken considerable work with Regional New South Wales, developing master plans and place plans for Casino and to prepare a growth management strategy for the entire LGA. Richmond Valley, as stated in the submission, is in a strong position to supply housing development on flood-safe lands within the region and should be included in the initial stage of the North Coast Urban Development Program, along with Byron, Ballina, Lismore and Tweed. As stated in the submission a number of times, and why, there needs to be a whole of government approach and commitment to the plan. In closing, I agree with the statement that Casino has a critical part to play in anchoring the regional economy and disaster-proofing the Northern Rivers. It's a bold submission, and it needed to be. I commend the authors and thank them for their dedication to the Richmond Valley and Richmond Valley's place within the region, and support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Mr. General Manager, I heard you were on the radio this morning. Would you like to make a comment on this issue?
I think Councillor Humphrey should have done that interview. So you've summed it up really well. Yes, so I was asked to do an interview on this item, so that went to air on ABC Radio this morning at around 10 to 8. And look, I did cover, our concerns, and you're right. I think boots and all is a good description for the submission. And I'd like to thank our Chief of Staff, Jenna, who put a lot of time and effort into that, along with our planning team and others. It is an important opportunity to highlight where we feel there are weaknesses and deficiencies in a New South Wales government document. It did commence the review of that document prior to the floods, and I don't think they've fully thought about the impact, and the world has changed. And so we've certainly highlighted our views on that. So yeah, look, I did that, touched on a number of the things that you have just outlined, but I think the key points are that need for a refresh on getting the whole of government vision right, making it clearer what the role of the New South Wales government is to make that plan come to fruition. Where are they going to invest? what infrastructure, what schools, hospitals, supportive infrastructure they're going to invest in, because that's the things that people make business decisions around. So keen for that to be strengthened. The emerging strategic centre, I think casino is, and we've played that role. So to be identified in that plan is something we think is necessary and timely. And as far as we all know, we are in a housing crisis on the Northern Rivers, and a casino in particular has a range of opportunities for a lot of new residential development. So to be included in that stage 1 of the North Coast Urban Development Program, to me, is essential. We're also working with the Northern Rivers Reconstruction Corporation around their recent EOI process because we believe there's some low-hanging fruit for some residential development to get going in our area, and as the point you made, Councillor Humphreys, on flood-free land that can be brought online quicker than other places. So I think there's some of the key points, and I think the recommendation to write to the Minister for Planning and Homes, and also I think include our local member, as always, keep our local member Chris Galaptis aware of our views on this, so that he can raise that with the higher levels of government. So I covered that and a number of things in that radio interview this morning.
I'm happy to include that in the motion. Right to our local member, along with the Minister of Planning. Councillor Humphreys, you include that?
Certainly.
Is the Minister for Planning and Homes a new position? Homes? Has it always been in there?
Yeah, so Homes has been added to the title of that ministry.
So with all the issues around low-cost housing and that plan, like, Balna's no chance of low-cost housing, just the property prices over there are astronomical. Lismore, the quality's not going to be there. Casino has the ability to supply low-cost housing and quality housing at a cheaper price with the land we've got available. It's not rocket science. Like, I think it's a must. Yeah.
Any other speakers? I don't need a right of reply, so I'll put that to a vote. Carried. Next item is 17.1 on page 33. I'll call that. I'll move it. Seconder?
Second.
Councillor Hayes. Councillors, this now is the second time that this has come to council. The first time was on the 19th of October 2021, and council was very supportive of this issue then. We want to create a positive outcome for the Box Ridge community, and I see the recommendation here continues that way of thinking. It's I really enjoyed the presentation. I thought that was pretty straight out. That community deserves the services that other areas of the Richmond Valley has. So I'm supporting that, and I'll ask any other councillor who would like to speak. Councillor Deegan.
Yes, I certainly agree with your comments, Mr Mayor, and thank Ms Woods for coming and speaking tonight. It was a really interesting presentation, and thank the other members of the Box Ridge community who have come here, because this is such an important issue for the community. And as you said, Mr Mayor, the Box Ridge community should have the same access to services as people in Coraki and the wider Richmond Valley community. And as Mrs Wood states, this process will assist the community to have access to those services. And I'll also, acknowledge the work between council staff and the Land Council to get this to happen. It looks like it's been a lot of work involved, and we'll have a positive outcome for the community. And also note the comments from Mrs Woods that the native title owners are in full support of this as well. So yeah, congratulations to everyone involved.
Councillor Hayes.
Just a question around the native title as an encumbrance on that parcel of land on the road. How quickly can the native title be extinguished from that land for this to go ahead? Because Ms Woods was talking about that they wanted everything done expediently.
I think the first response is that we've got a letter of support from the Banjalang Aboriginal Corporation, so that's a very good start. So I think that's, I can't put a time frame on it tonight, but what I can say is that we are working closely with the team at Bogle and other stakeholders and their planners to get this through as quickly as we can. The road ownership and its current categorisation was a stumbling block, but I think we've come up with a solution for that so that we can move that forward. We're certainly keen to make this happen. I think it formalises things. It makes it clear that that council takes on the future maintenance. But importantly, the Roads to Home program, which is a New South Wales government program, enables the infrastructure to be brought up to a good standard at the point of handover. So that will obviously ease any future burden on council to maintain infrastructure in that area. But as Ms Woods outlined, these once it is a subdivision, they will pay rates like everyone else, and so it's just it becomes part of what council maintains and the services that we provide. So I think that to answer your question, we've got everyone is heading in the same direction, and they want to achieve this outcome. So we will be continuing to work with the team to do it as quickly as we can, so we can get onto it and make it happen. I'm sure the Roads to Home program probably has an end date. Most government programs do, so we'll certainly keep that in mind and take the next steps. Obviously, a resolution tonight is an important part of getting there.
Any other speakers? I'd just like to say I look forward to this coming to fruition and the community down there getting the services they deserve. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. Where am I now? Page 40, item 19, matters for information. I get a mover, please.
Moved, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey. Seconder?
Second.
Councillor Humphries. Has any councillor got an item they'd like to discuss or call? No? I thought I had one, but nope. I'll put that motion in. All those in favour? Carried. Item 20.1. Questions on notice. There's a reply there to the question asked by Councillor Deegan.
I'd like to make a comment on item 20.
I need a move of the recommendation. Councillor Hayes, seconder. Councillor Deegan. Councillor Hayes.
Councillor Deegan's questions and the responses form only part of the complexities we will face in the near future. when a decision is to be made on a solution to dispose of our waste. Prior to reaching an outcome, I would like to see the possible economic implications put into perspective for each of the solutions and what the outcome could mean for our ratepayers and businesses who need to dispose of their waste into the future. I just think it's important that we know the economic results of every solution that's put in front of us before we make a decision.
The General Manager can take that on notice, but I just think it's early days until we get...
I realise that.
Yeah, until we don't know what's happening there, and there's all different options, and But if they can let you know. Yeah.
But we brought the environmental part of it out early, so why not get the whole lot out on the floor so we can discuss it, and we've got every little bit of information available.
Councillor Deegan?
So first of all, thank you to the General Manager and any staff involved in putting the information together in response to the questions. It's very detailed and certainly covers all the areas raised, and it's certainly clear that the current practices relating to landfill aren't a long-term solution. And certainly I still have some, I guess, concerns, and maybe over time they'll be addressed around thermal energy to waste. And I've jotted down a couple of questions, but I might come to that at the end because it might answer some of the points I've mentioned here. There still is possible risks around having facilities such as this near food production and agricultural industries if there's accidents and so forth, and the risks of possible stigma to the local agricultural industry if a facility such as this were to be built. And for me, I guess the big unanswered question is the fact that the New South Wales government has deemed in their policies that these facilities shouldn't be built in highly populated areas because there's, and as outlined in here, because there's already levels of pollution in those areas, and this would introduce a new form of pollution, creating further risk for those communities. So I guess the question for me then is, why would we want to introduce a new form of pollution to our community? That's just some of my thoughts on what was outlined in response to the question. And as stated, while it's clear there's no current proposal for energy to waste in the Richmond Valley, from what I've been able to see in council documents, council's been pursuing opportunities for the energy to waste sector since at least 2018, and this has possibly contributed to the government decision to make the Richmond Valley one of the 4 allowable locations in New South Wales, and there has been an expression of interest put out for alternative waste solutions. So I guess my point, the next thought is, where does community consultation fit into that? Like, there's been 4 years of process, and we don't know if a proposal will be put forward or when, and we know that if a solid proposal with a development application is put forward, there would be community consultation at the time, but how much more of council resources will we put in until we get to that point, and what if when we get to that point we find the community doesn't support it? So should we be considering some form of consultation at this point? And I guess that just brings me to one of my questions, because the General Manager, in response to a question asked during public access, was that, and I scribbled it down quickly, so I hope I've got it right, the New South Wales Energy from Waste Infrastructure Plan. There was community consultation on that in 2021-22. Is there any more information about that process and how that worked?
Look, I'd need to refresh my memory on exactly the process of the. So you're talking about the Energy from Waste Infrastructure Plan? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just need to refresh my memory on whether it went out as a draft or whether it was a final document that was released, and the New South Wales government made a decision to identify those 4 areas in that plan. Once that plan was made, then that's obviously followed through into the regulation that has been made earlier this year.
Yeah, and I guess my thoughts just on that was there consultation here in the local area around that. So, yeah, and look into that. And I guess I just wanted, just in the wording of, or the heading of the question, it notes the regional jobs precinct and expression of interest for regional waste solutions. I guess I just wanted to make it clear and clarify. Certainly my understanding is there's no, I guess, strings attached from the state government around the regional jobs precinct getting funding, being dependent on an energy from waste proposal. And I think that's my understanding. And if that's correct, I think it's really good to have that on record.
That's absolutely correct. The funding of the regional jobs precinct is probably at the point of most of it being committed and expended, because we are towards the end of that. Because it's a planning process, so a lot of the funding in that has gone into technical reports and other information that are guiding the development of master plans and the Casino Place Plan and urban growth management strategy. So it's their funding is to prepare that, to get the precinct and the planning pathways in place, and the majority of that has been done, and it definitely doesn't. It's not a requirement that an energy from waste facility pops out at the other end.
Yeah, thanks for that. I just thought that was, yeah, really important that people understood the difference there. Yeah, and I guess, yeah, what I'll need to think about now is, and perhaps hear other councillors' thoughts at a later date around the need for consultation and whether that needs to happen now or further down the track. But thank you for the response and for all the information provided.
Can I just a couple of points, just because you sort of asked questions. So your question about is it worth introducing a new pollution source? I suppose the response there is that the aim of what we've been doing over the last 4 years is to find an alternate waste treatment solution. So the aim is to find something that gives us a better outcome economically, but also environmentally. And there is plenty of research that says that's what this will achieve. Landfill outcomes aren't good. There's greenhouse gases emitted, and there's a report that's been done that says the outcome is worse than an energy from waste facility. Right? So that's something we need to consider. Is a new source worth it? But I suppose the trade-off is we won't get rid of the other source, which is what landfill does. So that's, I suppose, just something for you to consider. The other one around consultation. This council has been on a journey around alternate waste treatment for 4 or 5 years. We meet every month. There's been a lot of reports to council, a lot of opportunities for this community to give us their views. And so whilst there hasn't been specific consultation with just one question, do you want an energy from waste facility? There's been a lot of opportunity for people to consider this. And I think a large majority of this community are keeping an open mind on whether this is a good solution, a better solution. So that's, but that's not to put aside that we need to do more around, I suppose, responding to the claims. And like anything, if you don't want something, you can find reports that can suit your position on something. And so that's what we're having. We need to get some information together to be able to deal with that and look our community in the eye. I'm sure none of us want a worse outcome. I think, why would we want to do that? We all live here, and I think that's an important point. to make. We don't want to introduce something that is worse. It's about a better outcome, and it's also about the benefits that investment can bring into the community, but we don't want to invest to the detriment of the environment. And so that's certainly something I'm very conscious of, because I know all of you are.
Councillor Humphrey.
Just make note, you talked about the economical impacts of this thing alongside the environmental impacts. That's why I've asked to get that information. We need both those things together to make a decision, if we get to that stage.
It's Councillor Humphrey.
Thank you. Through you, I've just got a question, or ask for a comment from the General Manager with regards to the proximity to the food production. At the bottom of the middle paragraph, it says that, in brackets, exposure through food should be addressed through the human health risk assessment that applicants are required to prepare. Could you just tell me a little more about that? Thank you.
So that paper that's quoted, that the Tate paper, which, I mean, a lot of what I've certainly looked at in detail is the chief scientist and engineer. So it's a New South Wales government appointed role that has reviewed this in considerable detail and come up with the standards that these facilities, if they are to occur in New South Wales, will be required to meet. And they are the most stringent standards in the world. And so it deals with not only the environmental risk, but also the public health risk. And it's about having mitigation strategies in place. You know, these facilities, there are thousands of them in other parts of the world. Many countries have made the decision that that's a better or a solution for their waste challenges. It's an emerging industry, it's an emerging technology in Australia. Often when things are new, people have concerns, and that's right. It's right for people to be concerned. But that's why we look at other countries' experiences and how they're dealing with it and their experience. So if there is to be a proposal, they will need to go through very detailed studies to deal with human health risks, environmental risks, and satisfy EPA and the approval authority, which for a facility of the scale of what these facilities tend to be, it would be a state significant development, which has highly credible and informed people on them that make these decisions.
And so, Mr. General Manager, that HHRA, that's yet another layer of protection and approvals.
Yeah, so that's, and that's obviously advice that the chief scientist has referred to, included in the detailed work that he and his team have done. And so there'd be something that a determination authority would need to take into account.
Thank you.
I just want to make a couple of quick comments. It's easy for people to make statements, oh, this country doesn't allow them. But in Europe, a lot of those countries are sending their waste to another country, to energy to waste. Everything cannot be recycled. And Japan has the most stringent recyclable policies going. And the only waste that is incinerated to create energy is what can't be recycled. It's amazing over there how many different bins they have, and they have a bin separate for energy from waste facilities. So that's one thing. The other thing is we talk about public consultation. I believe if you're going to go to your community, you have to have facts. Not just say, oh, you're against something. You have to give them both sides of the stories. We don't know if anything is going to happen in this realm. So how can you go out to a community and ask them about something that may never eventuate, and it's only a maybe? I think that's very unfair to a community to give them half information or misinformation when it's not factual. And I just can't be a part of that. I think your community deserves a right to be fully informed if there's something going to occur, and if so, here are the facts. And at present, we have not got to that level. And I could go on for a lot longer, but I just think there'll be another day for that if anything does proceed. Any other speakers? Councillor Hayes, write a reply. Put that motion then. All those in favour? Carried. Any questions in writing for the next meeting? Councillor Hayes. Did we read them?
Have you got a copy to read out?
Okay, thank you.
I'm organised.
Councillor Hayes.
Okay, just following on from the last one. When council receives and evaluates expressions of interest for regional waste solutions, can information be included in a future business paper? I said future, not next one. Based around the financial impacts that any solution would have on the ratepayers and industries who will utilise any changes to the way that we dispose of our waste into the future.
Right, take it. Yep.
Question, yeah.
Thank you.
As long as it's a question.
Yep.
It's a question.
All right. Councillors, before we move on to... No, is there any other questions in writing? No. Before we move on to closed council, I'd just like to invite everyone in the room and out there viewing online to attend the special remembrance ceremony of the Queen, Elizabeth, at the Queen Elizabeth Park on Thursday, and that commences at 10:45. It will be only a short ceremony, but I hope to see as many people there as possible. Near the Pines, and as I said earlier, it will be on the flagpole that was originally there in '54, and I actually seen that pole when it was at the men's shed, and I'll talk a little bit about that on Thursday. So, yeah, hopefully we get a good crowd there. Thank you. Item 22, matters referred to closed council. I need a recommendation to go into closed council.
I'll move that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Morrissey.
I'll second.
Seconder.
Second.
Councillor Hayes. Thank you to the gallery for your attendance. Please have a safe trip home. I'll put that motion in favour. How are we going? You or one of the staff read the resolutions from closed council, please?
Yeah, I'll just hand it to our directors whose reports they were to read out the relevant resolutions.
In the item 22.1, tender VP 311535, design and construct Jackie Bobbin Bridge replacement. Recommend that Council 1 declines the only submission received for tender VP 311535, design and construct Jackie Bobbin Bridge replacement, due to the tendered price being in excess of the upper funding limit for the project. 2, applies clause 178(3)(e) of the Local Government General Regulation 2021 to authorise the General Manager to enter direct negotiations with suitably qualified contractors with a view to obtaining works that provide Council with the best outcome both from a financial and delivery perspective, and to finalise the terms of the contract or agreement and affixing the seal of Council where necessary. And 3, notes that the outcomes of the negotiations will be reported to Council for information at a future meeting.
In relation to item 22.2, tender VP 314224, upgrades to Richmond Valley Council's 4 sewage pump station switchboard platforms, the recommendation reads that 1, Council accepts a tender from AGS Commercial Proprietary Limited for the upgrade of 4 sewage pump station switchboard platforms, which represents best value for money at $558,162.73 ex-GST, and 2, the General Manager be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms and conditions of any contract or agreement in line with the content of this report and the available budget and affixing of the Council seal where necessary.
In item 22.3, replacement of casino indoor sports stadium flooring. Recommend that 1, Council applies the extenuating circumstances provisions of section 55(3)(1 of the Local Government Act 1993 to determine not to call tenders for the replacement of the casino indoor sports stadium flooring, and accepts the quoted price from Aura Sports Floors at $711,053 exclusive of GST, which represents best value for Council. And 2, as per the requirements of the Act, Council confirms A, the unique nature of the construction for this type of flooring system, which provides a level of resilience to future rain events. B, the single compliant response from this locally accessible contractor when the quotation was advertised publicly. C, the ability to deliver the project as soon as possible to enable restoration of community access to this important recreational facility. And 3, the General Manager to be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms and conditions of any contract or agreement in line with the content of this report and the available budget, and affixing the seal of Council where necessary.
Thank you. That closes the meeting. Thanks for your attendance, and everyone have a safe trip home. And it's fortunate that Sam couldn't be here we could have congratulated him for his newborn boy. Thank you.